You know, one of the interesting things in life is to come up with little reminders of what is. And one of the reminders for me is the fact, or one of the things I say to myself quite a bit is that if I'm not seeking counsel, then I'm taking God's place. Because He's the only one that doesn't need it. We keep trying to take God's place, believe me. We do. If you go through theology, I don't care how you go through it. As I teach theology at Nicolay Bible Institute, one of the things I keep doing is warning young people that you keep wanting to be God. You keep wanting these characteristics for yourself. For example, if you're in the last summer, I said, you know, God doesn't change. You do. So when you come up on somebody and you say, I can't change, you're taking on a characteristic that belongs to God. That's what we'd like to do. The trouble is we're not God. So when we do that, it's destroying us, it's not helping us. I need to go, I do change because I'm not God, and now look for ways that I need to. Not, I don't change. Now, how many times you've heard it? I can't change. It's like, oh man, just tell me that once. If you want me to go ballistic, just say that to me. Because I'll say, that is a lie. You can change. Everybody can. And so we have that characteristic. We have the characteristic, obviously, I don't, you know, all I am is trying to convince people that I'm right about everything and I don't take counsel. No, God's the only one that's right about everything. So, Dave Wager, as I talk to myself, I'm not right about everything. I think I'm right about everything. Right now. But see, I realize I have to tell myself I'm not right about everything. So that I realize that I'm not right about everything. And if you just followed me, that was very confusing in some way. But as I do that, there's other things. I mean, when you look at theology, and that's not the point. Someday it'd be fun to come here and just go through theology and say, here's how we're trying to distort it and make it about us. I mean, honestly, right now, people are also trying to be omnipresent. We want to know with the internet what's going on everywhere. Do you realize that'll just fry your brain? What do you need to know? God can handle knowing what's going on everywhere. You can't handle what's going on everywhere. You can hardly handle what's going on in front of you. So you don't need to know about what's going on everywhere else in the world all the time. So it's kind of interesting to go through the theological things and just look at it and say, boy, I try and steal that, don't I? My wife and I run a club for 3rd to 5th graders, and this year we decided we're going to teach them doctrine. Being a college doctrine teacher for many years, I thought, let's bring it to 8-year-olds, shall we? And we are, and it is a ball. I mean, it is so much fun to teach 8-year-olds doctrine, and they are listening and getting it, which is really amazing, because it's really simple things. I just broke it up into 2 sections. I said, here's characteristics or attributes, and I have to, you know, every week I have to ask them what attributes mean, and they tell me. But here are the attributes that God has that you can't have. And that's how I describe it to them. And then there's attributes we're going through that you can have if you want them. See, there's some that you can have, but most of them you can't have. Because He's God and He's holy. He's different than you. Different than everybody. He's holy, holy, holy. So much different. What I want to talk to you this morning about is the idea of making sure that you have wise counsel in your life because of the fact that you need it. Not because of the fact that it's just some religious thing you do, but because you need it. We all have perspectives. We all grow up a certain way. We all have influencers in our lives. We all have counsel coming from whether we want it or not. I'm going to suggest to you that you be very careful with the counsel that goes into your head. Because you can have counsel that goes into your head that is worthless. Here's a verse up on the screen, Proverbs 15:22. Without counsel, plans fail, but with many advisors, they succeed. I don't know how many times people have thrown that at me when they're, and I look at them and go, it actually matters who the counsel is. You need to be careful, because if you start quoting this verse and you just start saying, I'm going to get a majority opinion, here's the problem with that. A majority of opinion is a majority of opinion. It has no bearing on truth. So you have to understand the basics. I taught 5th grade for several years and in a secular school in the Chicago area, public school. And I used to walk in and yell to my kids, the Supreme Court, and they would all yell back, is not supreme. until my principal made me stop that. But the point was really simple to me. Just because somebody makes a law does not make it moral or right or ethical. It makes it a law. Now, in our system, I wasn't showing disrespect for the system. They make laws, that's what they do. But this happened to be a very heavily Jewish area, and so they were very anti-abortion. So they would all agree with me that the law saying that abortion is legal does not make abortion right. And that's the illustration I would use with them. It is legal, certainly, in our country. It's not right, though. And of course, the public school didn't like that too much, but it's the illustration I gave. And in life, you can see that. People, they can make laws, but laws don't necessarily mean right. And in our country, we struggle with the idea that a majority opinion is a right opinion. No, a majority opinion is always a majority opinion. And the way is actually narrow, and the gate is actually narrow. And a lot of times the minority people are right, not the majority. That's why I struggle with churches who vote on everything and that kind of thing. It's like, where's the leadership? Are you assuming that a majority of your church is intimately walking with God, listening to Him, and voting on the issue? I wonder if that's true. I'm just wondering aloud. If it's true, great, vote, I guess. But if it's not true, you better listen to Moses. I don't know what to tell you on that one, other than the fact that a majority of people does not constitute truth. But there is a truth. So when we use the verse, without counsel plans fail, but with many advisors they succeed, that's a verse from the Bible. That is correct. But put the Bible in context. Your counselors need to be those who love God, walk with God, think God is right, apply it. Those are the counselors you want to be around. And if they're not doing that, don't be around them. Not in the sense of having them counsel you. So I made something up. I made an acronym up. Because as a teacher, we can make things up. And so I made this up. So I have an acronym here. I want to go through these for you. It's actually the word APPS. And as you're looking at a counselor in the future, you're looking at somebody to mentor you. And before I even go further, I want to tell you, I firmly believe that everybody should have 3 people in their life. 3, you being one of them, so 2 others. But I say 3 because I'm in the habit of doing it. So 2 others other than yourself, 3 people. You should have somebody older that you go to, and you go to them with a specific purpose in mind, that they're the wise counsel in your life. And they need to be people who love God, walk with God, and shoot straight with that kind of thing. You need to have somebody younger in your life that you are watching over to be the wise counselor to. Each of you should have that relationship. There should be that relationship in your life, and if not, I would work towards getting there. I will admit that as you get older, it gets harder to get that older one in there. But you can have other guys your age with you or something. You know, I don't have any idea. But if you're 90 years old, I'm trying to have somebody older, you might be searching the world. I'm not 100% sure. But you still need to have the idea of looking towards both mentoring and helping. And what that does for me, if I'm in the middle there, I now know the responsibility I have of walking with God, of seeking wise counsel, and living in a way that represents it to this generation what to do. I'm going to go through these 4 things because these are things I want you to watch and be careful of, because it's the ways that we mess up, I think, when we're looking at wise counsel. The first one is affirmation. In our culture right now, we are in big trouble because there's a multi-billion-dollar industry out there that works on just affirmation, and the affirmation is lies. Affirmation is not a bad thing, by the way. But affirmation only has value if it's done in the truth. What we are doing now is we're living in a society that gives false affirmation to people. This is messing a whole generation up mentally. When I was teaching school years ago, we used to affirm kids for walking across the room and not tripping. Oh, isn't Johnny good? He didn't trip from here to there. He's going to be a track star. See, false affirmation. We start looking for ways to affirm people regardless of whether they should be affirmed in that area or not. Kids playing the piano somewhere. Grandma goes, "You are the best piano player I ever heard in my life. You should probably be professional." Grandma, that's nice. But you just gave a false affirmation. I don't know, many years ago, I don't even know if this program's on, and I never really watched much of it, but there was something, American Idol was, American Idol? They're not on anymore, are they? Don't even know. But they had people try out. The one program I watched, there were several that were terrible. They were terrible musicians, terrible. You know, act, get out of here, you're terrible, off the stage crying. And before they went on, they interviewed him, and what they said was, yeah, everybody said, man, I'm a great singer. I really need to go and share this gift with the world. And I'm thinking, they all lied to you. You didn't have one person in your life that was honest? False affirmation does not get you far. It will destroy lives. True affirmation is different than that. You've got to be careful when you're listening to somebody who's affirming you. They could be affirming you to get their own way. They could be molding you, making you into somebody they want. They could be manipulating you. But you be careful about that false affirmation stuff. When I was in high school, I remember I was a swimmer and I played football. And those two sports normally don't go together. But in long situation, I just did both of them. And by my junior year, the football coach came and told me, you're a big guy, and we want you playing football, we want you starting, but we don't want you swimming anymore. And I said, are you kidding me? I was swimming, for 3 years. I loved swimming. I was undefeated my sophomore year. Swimming was good for me. So I went to the swimming coach and I said, Coach, he's telling me I shouldn't swim anymore. And my swimming coach looked at me and said, Dave, can I be honest with you? Please. You're not going to be a professional athlete at anything. Why don't you just enjoy as many sports as you can? And I remember looking at him going, thank you, Coach. I will. I knew that. Deep down in my heart, I knew that. I got cut from a no-cut baseball team. I don't have any athletic genes in me. I was the guy that got the last one picked for sports, all that kind of stuff. That was me in grade school. I knew that I wasn't going to excel and be this tremendous athlete someday for anybody. But that guy said it right. The other coach was going, you got a chance and all this stuff, and we can put you in football. I'm thinking, I've only played like 10 downs. You don't even know me. You see, false affirmation is destructive. The rest of my life, I realized I need to be honest with people. That coach gave me a breath of fresh air by telling me something that was true. Affirmation is extremely important in our lives. There's an industry built around false affirmation, just saying something that's not true till you believe it. That's not what we're talking about. I can tell anybody, I can affirm anybody, you can come to me and I can tell you that, look, God made you and He loves you. And there's a plan. You are not an accidental blob of protoplasm. I didn't lie to you yet. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know much more than that. But in that, I can be honest with you. When you do something, young people come to me all the time and trying to figure out what to do with their lives. And I say, man, I don't know. I said, what do you I believe in the body principle. What do you do well? I do this well. That. What would you do for nothing? I ask them. I would do this. Well, why don't you do that then for something? Oh, I don't know. Why not give it a try? I've worked for 35 years at Silverbridge Ranch. I still haven't done work yet. I'm doing this, and this is considered my job, and I'm laughing about it. I'm thinking, this is a job? I love doing this. See, you find what you get to do when you do it. And God made me to do this and not even think it was work. I feel sorry for those guys who go through their whole life and they can't wait to get out of what they're doing. I think, why don't you enjoy what you're doing? Go do something that you would enjoy, that God made you to do. Affirmation is very important, but it needs to be true. What do you already believe about yourself and why? That's a question you got to ask. And somebody who is a true counselor to you that's trying to help you will question you. They will honestly question what you are doing and why. You know why they're going to do that? Because they care about you and they aren't God. They don't know why. And they're not sure you know why. So they're just getting in your life going, no matter what you do, I love you. But let me ask you, why are you doing this? Why are you saving your money like that? What are you doing this for? If you've got somebody older in your life that's a mentor, show them your checkbook. Tell them how you spend your time. Tell them how you spend your money. Let them ask you the tough questions. Why? Because if I'm mentoring you and you're talking to me about money, I'm going, do you trust that money? Because you're talking about it like you trust it. You're going, oh, you're judging me? No, I'm your mentor. And you know what I know for sure? You lie to yourself. That's what I know, because everybody does. So I'm just asking you, are you lying to yourself here? Let's grab a cup of coffee. See, I'm not mad at you or anything. I'm trying to get into your head in an honest way. And what I'm going to, you know, there have been so many young people through the years who have come to me, and, you know, just recently a guy came to me and was talking, and I said, well, you know, your problem is you don't spend any time with God, you don't love God, you just love yourself, and if that's going to keep going on, you're going to be a miserable wretch. He said, you know what? No one's ever talked to me that way. Sorry. Can you talk to me more? I can. I'm not angry with you. But I'm not going to falsely affirm you either. Because false affirmation has gone to a whole new level in this country. We just say things to people we don't mean. Do you know there's a new study out by psychology that basically says, I'm going to surround myself with people who live in a way that I portray myself as? And as I do that, as I live and you think that I am who I'm portraying myself as, I start to disrespect you because I know you're too gullible. Eventually that brings distance between us. Because I'm realizing, it's kind of like this. My mother, growing up, Dave could do no wrong. My mother, no matter what I did in life, I had a good reason for it and I was right. You know, after a while, I didn't even want to hear my mother talk about whatever I did. Why? Because it didn't matter. She knew I was right like 100% of the time. I had a good motive. I was always right. I just, you know, threw a rock at my buddy, busted his head open or something, and she's going, I'm sure Dave had a good reason. It's like, I didn't like him. My dad, on the other hand, he was honest. Dave, that was wrong, man. See, now my dad would go after me. Who did I go to for advice, you think? Not my mom. Never. Why? No matter what I did, it was right. Oh, in one way I liked it. For wanted money, I go to her. Why? Because my dad would ask me what I wanted it for. I want the false affirmation in a way, but not when it counts. The trouble is we have a whole generation of people who have grown up in the political system we have and all the false affirmation that's going on, and schools that now give awards and athletic events to all the participants because they were so good at participating. And everything. Do you know that those participation awards don't mean anything? I mean, how many of those can you have on your shelf? And you look at it, when I go into a room, if I'm a kid and I have all these participation awards and everyone else does, I go into a room, the trophies are meaningless because of the plethora of them. It's like words become meaningless when there's a plethora of words. Food becomes meaningless. If I sit here, you can have 10 steaks for dinner. You can have 10 steaks for breakfast. You can have 10 steaks for lunch. Eventually you go, I don't want steak. Why? Meaningless. Why? Because they're all over the place. So trophies to participate, we don't need any more of them. How about giving a trophy to somebody who wins one? That way when it sits on the shelf, it says, different than everybody else. See, that's a different kind that we look at. Our constant inability to reconcile truth with what we believe has grave consequences in our daily life. It just does. Affirmation, first one. The second one we have to be careful of if you're getting counsel today is the idea of popularity. There are counselors and guys who are just trying to be popular. They're trying to get a following. Be careful. No following. Don't be a part of that routine. Whether it be just following in writing materials or whatever it might be, here's what you need to understand. Freedom actually just comes from one of these two things. It either comes from obedience or consensus. And of course, you know where it comes from. It comes from obedience. Those who want to be popular, they don't worry about obedience, they worry about consensus. Even in churches, sometimes they get together, we want a consensus here. When our board for Sober Translate Bible Study get together, I tell them, I'm not interested in a consensus. That's not what I'm interested in. I do not want to know that all of us agree on something. I want to know that all of us agree with God. That's the ultimate goal. Now you say that's hard to get to because I know, but that's the ultimate goal. I just want to make it clear. Just like money isn't evil, it's evil when you trust money. So sometimes it's a little fuzzy to deal with, but that's what I'm saying. The goal isn't consensus, it's consensus with God. Hitler worked on a consensus. Some of the parties in the United States of America are trying to get us out of a Republican into a Democratic thing because they want consensus. Because, consensus is a whole lot easier to get than right and wrong. Consensus, you can do certain things to get consensus. Be very careful if you're around somebody taking in information trying to gain a consensus. Just be very careful. Because before you know it, they're manipulating words and what they say and what they mean to try and get everybody on board. It's easy. Just watch the political process. If you're in front of somebody, your cause is really important until they go there, then that cause is really important, and that cause is very important. In the end, they want a consensus that they're the one to be elected. See, they're trying to get a consensus, but they don't really care about what's right and wrong. Be very careful as you do that. I would encourage you, and I don't have time in this today, but I would encourage you in this scriptural passage to go back and just read 2 Timothy, the whole book, and emphasize the end of 3 in chapter 4. Where Paul looks at young Timothy and says, at the end of 3, use the word of God as your truth. Reprove, rebuke, exhort. Those are the 3 things a teacher does. Reprove, rebuke, exhort. You don't do that with consensus. You do that because you're listening to God. And then he says, do it with patience. Why? Why do it with patience? Keep looking at chapter 4. Because these people will go find a teacher with itching ears that they can find a consensus with. See, so if you're going to find somebody with wise counsel, don't find one because you're trying to get a consensus with them. Because you're trying to build a base of a lot of people. You can believe a lot of things being right and all of you be wrong. Go to chapters 3 and 4 in 2 Timothy, just read them and see what Paul is warning Timothy about. This is not a new problem. 1 John 2:15 to 17, do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. Popularity, consensus, obsession with self. It's really not about a position in this world. It's about going to somebody who loves God, who understands that this world is just an instrument of God. And so they're not trying to gain a kingdom in this world. It's easy to start to mess up while you're doing things. John 12:42, nevertheless many, even the authorities, believed in him, but for fear of the Pharisees they did not confess it, so they would not be put out of the synagogue. For they love the glory that comes from man more than the glory that comes from God. See, the people of the synagogue believed this, and it was a majority of what they believed, and they didn't want to go against that because they loved the position they had, because they got the people to believe what they wanted them to believe. Be careful of those leaders. Be careful if you're listening to advice from somebody who is concerned with making sure everybody is on the same page. The truth of the matter is, if you love God and you're saying this is right, there's going to be people that say, I disagree with you, I don't like you. Now, a majority of them, I don't know. That's not my business. It depends on what crowd you're talking to. Depends if you're talking to 2 or 5 or 500. I have no idea. But the goal is not to be popular, to gain a consensus. The goal is to point people to Jesus. At the end of Jesus' life, he wasn't overly popular. Oh, people knew him, but he wasn't popular. For am I seeking the approval of man or God? I mean, that's the kind of counsel you want. You want somebody who says, I'm really trying to seek approval of God in my advice to you. I'm going to stand before God one day because of what I told you, and I want to stand clean. So we have affirmation, popularity, power, and solidarity. Let me talk about the power a little bit. There are people who will try and advise you because they get a power trip off of controlling you. You might say, well, that doesn't really happen. That happens a lot. Finding people to manipulate and control because they have a need for power. If you want to have the counsel of many, and you want to have the counsel of somebody who's wise, they are uninterested in position and power. They're not. They might have position and power, by the way. You know what happens accidentally? They keep moving up the ladder. They don't even want to move up. But it's just the nature of who they are. I've said so often as I teach leadership that the number one quality of a good leader is he's a good follower. And then I go to Ezekiel, Jeremiah, I say, go look at these people. Most of the time, nobody liked them, nobody listened. See, that's not a consensus. They weren't talking about... You know what God was counting on? These guys were able to stand up and say things, and when they were done... Just read the book of Jeremiah. Now I gave you 2 assignments you're going to be reading forever. Read the book of Jeremiah. Do you know all this silly stuff God made Jeremiah do? This man was not looking for power. Lay on your side, do this. You know, I mean, it's like, God, this will make me look silly. You know how many times those who follow God abandon any exterior look of power and authority? Often. Because they're not the power and authority. That does not mean they don't hold a title. I'm still the president of Silver Trans. That is my title. But I won't throw that at you as far as authority. Not unless you're on our grounds and I have to make a decision. You shouldn't be there for some reason. I have a certain responsibility to go with it. But basically, it's not the title. There's no reason to say, well, if I ever got, I want more power. Almost all the guys I respect in life, as far as going to them and talking to them, they just kind of run away from the power idea. They don't want it. But everyone else wants them around because of the way they live. And so they give it to them somehow. Got to be careful, because if you give it to them for a while, they might get used to it. Pretty soon they're living for the power. Why, if you have somebody in leadership and you have power and authority, your power and your authority are only valid if you use it for other people. It is never valid if you use it for yourself. You use that power and authority for others, and if you're looking for somebody to give you advice, you look for somebody who uses their power and authority for others. These are safeguards that you look for. I'm not saying that every one of these you're going to be able to figure out, but when I was thinking of who I would listen to in wise counsel, I want someone who affirms honestly. I want someone who doesn't necessarily care about popularity. I want somebody who really, they're not on a power trip. See, these are simple things, but important. Deuteronomy 8:13. And when your herds and your flocks multiply, and your silver and gold multiplied, and all that you have is multiplied, then your heart will be lifted up, and you will forget the Lord your God. Because you're starting to think that the power and authority actually comes from the stuff you have. This is tragic. You start out this way, you end up this way. As people get older, you want to watch them. Now is power and authority, is it starting to get in their head? Do they start thinking they deserve more than others? That's not how it goes. Not with those who walk with God and love God. And you forget the Lord your God. It's easy to forget the Lord your God. It's easy to forget those hungry years when you're going through life and you can't make it. And you have to just be on your back and trust God to provide. You forget you went through that. So if you're going to have wise counsel, you want to make sure they haven't forgotten that they go through that they went through that. You want to listen to the stories and remind them, as a younger person looking for wise counsel, ask them to reiterate the years where they were wandering in the desert. Because everybody was. Isaiah 40:29, he gives power to the faint, not the powerful. He gives power to the faint. And whom has no might, he increases strength. Even the youth shall faint and be weary, and the young men shall fall exhausted, but they who wait on the Lord. See, the wise counsel understands something. The power I have comes from God. They wait on him. You know, it's interesting that I honestly believe this, that in the ministry that I'm in today, that the reason I'm in the position I'm in today is because I'm not gifted at anything really. No, honestly, when you say that, people go, no, I'm really not. I'm not a builder. We have 60 buildings. I'm not an administrator. I hate business. I can't even add. I can't spell and I'm a writer. I mean, everything that I love to do, I can't do. I really am very careful not to teach too much on giftedness and that kind of thing, because I go, I don't have anything that God would use, but He's used it. Quickly, I have to finish this. Solidarity, the last part of the S word. One of the things that you want to look for if somebody's going to give you advice and you're seeking them out is that they understand what you need to be in solidarity with. And that's the brain. The body teaches that we're a body of Christ. We're a body. I have a lot of different parts. So we're not trying to make, if I'm mentoring somebody, I'm not trying to make them into a miniature Dave Wager. They might be a knuckle and I might be a knee. What I'm trying to do is this. I'm trying to get them to have unfettered access to the brain. As I just talked to you now, I went like this. I didn't think of that actually. Now I am, so it's weird. But normally I don't. Can't do that. My hands go with my words, don't they? It helps you understand what I'm saying. Now I'm thinking about it, so it's really strange. But my hands go with my words. They always do. My brain is going, make your face look like this, make your hands do this, walk over here, put your hand down there. I mean, why is it doing that, the brain? Because it's making everything in the body go with my words. And you understand better watching me and listening to me than you will ever listening to me. Because my whole body is in tune with what I'm saying. That's what I'm talking about, solidarity. If you're going to listen to advice from somebody, make sure that they understand that principle of unfettered access to the brain, and that you are to function as a knuckle if you're a knuckle, and he can function as a knee. But the principle is the unfettered access. Because in the end, we want people to see Jesus, and right now, my hands are probably wondering, how do I help them see Jesus when your mouth is doing all the talking? Well, you're going like this, or something. You just went like this. Never mind. Ephesians 4, rather speaking the truth in love. That's what we do. You want to find someone who will be truthful with you and do it in love. That's really what it's about. We need to be people who subject ourselves to those who love God, who actually come to them and say, I want you to know everything about my life. And we know that they are people who are working on their relationship with God. They affirm us honestly. They're not after popularity. They do not use their power except for the people and use it for them in any way, shape, or form. And they are trying to get us to have unfettered access to the brain. It's somebody you can probably start listening to. It's too easy for us just to go back to that first verse I started and say, in the counsel of many there's wisdom. I understand that. But let's make sure that the counsel of many that we listen to are those who are listening to God. And in this day and age, it just gets harder and harder to find them. So 2 challenges. You be one of them. You be one of them. All right, that's one challenge. Second, get yourself in a triangle. You find somebody who's doing that. You get with somebody who's younger. And make sure they do the same thing. And if we all do that, how many hundreds of thousands of people will be affected eventually? By people who are loving God and wanting somebody around them to love God and hold them accountable to it with all this honesty stuff. I hope that makes sense. This is a really quick, you can take courses and stuff on this. So this was just a summary that I wanted to throw at you real quick. Let me pray. Father, again, thank you. Thank you for our time together. Thank you for these men. I ask you to let your Spirit work in our hearts. And glorify your name in all that we do and say. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you very much.